Hello, everybody. It is Friday, April 3rd. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And April 4th for some of you if you tune in across the sea. Welcome to another episode. I'm excited today. I get to bring my first guest, and I can already assure you this is going to be a friend of the show, Into the Myst. You can follow him at Into the Myst 13 on X. Mist is one of my mutuals I've had for since I really started using X last June. Who introduced? We met through a general GC through some other mutuals. Mist has a passionate focus on cybersecurity, on protecting children. I've spoken on a couple episodes about that. Mist has been an inspiration to me on some of these topics and has taught me a lot about the dangers children face, especially like online. So we're going to be talking about a range of topics here. And yeah, Mist, if you want to give yourself do an intro, welcome, man. Thanks for joining.
Sure. Yeah, it was. I just love how kind of these creation stories start. We met in a GC and became dear friends, and through the course of time. Yeah, I'm at Into the Mist 13 on X. Obviously, it's the only social media I really use. I because I find cool people like you and our group of friends. It's a great community place. But yeah, so I've been in my main focus in life has been on kind of technology and just understanding how technology works. And now that we've, become more integrated, I'm a little less than 40. So now that we've become more integrated with the technology spectrum in the world, it's really, technology is integrated in all of our life, more so than maybe we ever thought back 30 years ago or whatever. So really, it was kind of interesting that this my passion for cybersecurity and for technology has now transformed into this kind of like digital protection. Teach either I'm trying to protect people or teaching people how to protect themselves. Because I do think that if you think about wellness in a holistic sense, taking care of all your health, I believe that cyber wellness is part of that. And so that's kind of where everything stems from, was my love of computers and technology and cybersecurity. And now we just live in a world where it's everywhere.
No, absolutely, man. And that's actually like a really great segue. I know we have a range of topics to jump into. If Since we're talking cybersecurity, you want to let's start there, man. If you want to give a little bit rundown of like what you think, like what are like the front lines of the conflict when it comes to cybersecurity. Like I know you have a lot of interest in integrity and safety and vulnerabilities. You want to just hop in there and like let the viewers know a little bit about that and just flow from there, man.
Sure. Yeah. So I think that when I first was learning. Okay, so I first started studying computers when I was very young. My mom had two phone lines and unlimited internet minutes. And for those of you who know what that means, you know what that means. Like, she could pick up the phone and use it. Um, that was where, I first learned, like, back in the early days of the internet. We're talking like 98, 99. And I ran across many people who would consider, you would consider hackers. I learned a lot from them about how computers work, but I was never one to go out there and want to break other people's things or steal from people. So it was kind of like this skill that I had that I never figured I would be able to use, because up until 2010 or 2015, hackers were still being sent to prison, even the ones that were trying to help. And then finally, the world kind of started to change. So I found out that you could become, what you call an ethical hacker professionally, which may sound weird, but once I found out that you can kind of use your hacking skills for good, I decided to take on a formal education and learn a lot about, that kind of realm of things. But even understanding computers the way I did, the first day of class, right? I was attending Washington University, or University of Washington, and my first professor was like, look, I'm going to lay it all out. A lot of you are in here because you think this might be cool. You might think that hacking sounds like fun. You might believe all of these things, but I'm going to just tell you the truth about cybersecurity. And basically, he just laid out for 3 hours, how weak our entire system is across the United States. And I couldn't sleep that night, because it was just like, it was almost like an existential dread. It was like, oh my God, we actually live in this world where nobody cares about digital security. And so, kind of taking it on from there, it was like I've made it my kind of quest to not only become better for myself, right, to earn some income and that kind of thing, but I also want people to realize how dangerous this frontier is before us.
No, for sure, man. It's pretty scary. Like with what we see right now, we've had all these massive bank breaches. They just like sweep them under the rug. I know there was a really large breach on Dish Network that I believe even went as far as social security's numbers being breached. So like when it comes to how an individual, like maybe just like the 101 missed, like when it comes to like just like basic level, like um you know firewalling for oneself, right? Like to be establish like basic level security outside of like a 2FA, right? Like that's what they tell us, like that's security. What could you advise viewers, as far as just like real simple like first steps into coming and getting and you don't, like you can flip this around however you like, but I guess that's the question is what would be like the basic level advice you can give to the viewers when it comes to securing themselves?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question because it actually all stems uh, from computer sciences, from understanding exactly kind of like what a computer is at core. And I don't mean understanding the processes. You don't have to be a technological wizard, right? You don't have to get super detailed about it. It's just kind of understanding that a computer at core is a transfer of electricity. That's all it really is. It's gates wiring electricity, and we are interacting with those gates. So, at a very small level, computers are designed to be open because of the transferring of information. So, understanding that really at a physical level, computers are built at an insecurely, and all security kind of has to be built in as blocks, right, as these kind of like measures as gates. Starting to kind of think about things like that, right, is and I know that might sound big, but it's like when you just start thinking about interacting with your computer, you're like, oh, I'm accessing a program that's accessing hardware, that's accessing lines of electricity around the world, essentially, is what you're doing. It can get way more complicated than that. But starting there, just starting to think about, like, okay, what is this thing before me? And then we just start taking it into um, I would call it hygienics, right? Your cyber hygienics. Every day you get up, you brush your teeth, you eat breakfast, you drink your coffee, you take a shower, whatever, right? You kind of like take care of yourself. Maybe you have a stretching routine. A lot of people go to the gym. Well, I kind of like think about your cyber routine or cyber hygiene being a part of that routine. So you kind of want to go through and clear your caches, get in the habit of like, closing out your windows in your phone on your Internet Explorer, your Safari, whatever browser you use. Get in the habit of just kind of like thinking about like, where am where is my data? What am I leaving around? And then just start getting in the practice of those kind of things. On Twitter, get in the practice of going and clearing out your cache. Get in the practice of every once in a while checking to make sure that your email and your phone number are the same thing. And I know these sound like very small kind of like things, and people are like, oh, whoa, how does this correlate to cybersecurity? Well, what it really starts is building that routine, right? That's what we're all really trying to do because cybersecurity can get very complicated very fast. We could start talking about, length of passwords. We can talk about firewalls. We could talk about VPNs, and we can kind of get into those things all at first. But really, it's just developing the routine of cyber maintenance or hygiene, because all of those things don't matter. Like a VPN doesn't matter. Strong passwords don't matter if you don't implement them all correctly, right? If you don't put them in part of your routine, if you don't turn on your VPN, right, then you will never have it on, right? It will never protect you. So small things kind of like that, like learning to like, oh, I'm going to turn off the Bluetooth on my phone instead of just leaving it on all the time. Very, very small actions at first, which of course we can talk about leading into other hygienics, but really it starts with the routine.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, because I think we all take that for granted. It's like you think you set yourself like a really good password, and you never, like for example, like in corporate practice, I'm not trying to out myself, but it's like every 90 days you have to change your password, right? So you got to like cycle passwords. You got to make, and you don't use the same one twice, right? You're always checking, like you said, you're checking your internal information, like associations to that particular account, ensuring that they're the same. Like check your profile on your Disney Plus account, right? Is that like kind of like what you're getting at? Is like just
Exactly.
kind of okay, yeah. I mean, I suck at that. I need to do much better at that. I just like I create like, I have like a codified set, if you will, on the passwords I use. But I probably should do something a little bit different than that, because it's, I gotta actually ask you a question. I've noticed this a lot on like on my phone, right? Like I'll on web, like if I'm on the computer, like right now, this doesn't happen. But like I have an Android, and I'll log into an account. Let's say like I did a forgot password. I log back in, and then I'm trying to generate a new password, and then it's like, hey, do you want us to create you a key, like a CDN key? Do you know anything about that? Like is that advisable? Because like to me, I see it's like a MAC address looking thing, and I'm like, I don't know, how am I going to remember that? I'm not going to write it down. It's just going to be on my phone now, and probably if it's linked to associated computers, it would function. Do you advise like people just be intelligent? Don't use just a phrase. Use numbers. Use characters. Is it better to do that, or do you trust these auto generated keys? Are they reliable?
So I'm glad you kind of bring that up, because obviously passwords are probably our first point of protection that everybody has to use digitally. Not everybody's going to download a VPN. Not everybody's going to do anything like that. Everybody has to use a password. I personally actually advise against things like kind of what you're discussing, which is essentially a password manager built into, your Android device. And iPhone has one built into, things, and then you can download other separate third-party password managers as well. So essentially, it's all kind of the same thing, and they have these auto-generated, and it's, yeah, like you said, it looks like this, very random string of letters and numbers, and obviously it looks very secure and safe. My kind of thing is like, I do try to remember most of my passwords. Of course, I have a very limited amount of accounts that I deal with. Obviously, some people have a vast amount of accounts that they have to deal with. But I suggest, figuring out, obviously writing it down is dangerous, because where, you've got to keep it safe. But I write I write down my passwords. I keep them in a safe spot, and then I kind of like rotate them. There are variations on them, which of course is terrible for me, because if I forget to write down the variation, then I've got to reset. But let me get to the password kind of manager point. The thing about these password managers is that, and the same thing as writing it down, it's everything is in one place. But the thing about, having it written down on a piece of paper or something, or a notebook that you have in a safe, it's a lot harder to get to that, probably. Someone would have to break into your house, and get that password, that notebook. Whereas with the password manager, you're entirely relying upon someone else to keep track of that. You're entirely relying on, the application to have proper security measures, to all of these things. All of your passwords would be in one centralized place, and therefore if it's compromised, everything would be compromised. Whereas in, if someone gets into my email, they're not necessarily going to have the same password for my Twitter or for my, all of these other things. Whereas if someone got into the password manager, or if you forget the master password for your password manager or lose it, it's kind of like you're locked out or somebody's all the way in. And passwords really are a very weak form of protection nowadays with all of these cracking measures and stuff. But we have our entire system kind of like built from the physical layer up as passwords as authentication methods.
Right.
So there's this balance of like you said, and I'm actually a fan of the passphrases in a way, but you can't just rely on letters and numbers, things like that. But I'll sing my passwords to myself, and that's kind of how I remember them. But again, I don't have a lot of accounts because I keep my cyber hygiene pretty small. My digital footprint is very small.
Makes sense. That makes sense. And like, when it comes to like speaking of like passwords, like when you set up like I'm gonna do a little segue here, if that's okay.
Yeah,
When we think of passwords, if you're getting into crypto, and that's kind of where I want to take this. Maybe we start miss like just surface level on like the security when it comes to setting up a crypto account. Your 12 key phrases, and how to secure those 12 the 12 phrases, or 12 words, I should say, when it comes to setting up your account to make sure, if you lose that, you've lost whatever you have, right? Maybe we start with that, and then we can kind of transition into like the digital frontier. Like, let's talk about what we're seeing right now, with like in the courts with the Clarity Act, and financial warfare that's been going on for more than a decade. Like when the SEC basically seized and froze XRP to basically use it as its test bed to learn the underlay of crypto. And subsequently, what we have presently is the murmurings, and it's getting a little bit louder on CBDCs. So you want to like maybe we start with the like maybe some kind of couple tips on how to properly store or save, because you got to treat it like a bar of gold, right, Miss? Like when you think of your 12
yeah.
keywords. Maybe we start with that. If you have any suggestions there, and then like if you want to just take the floor again, and run us down on like I know a good bit of the history on XRP. Maybe we could use XRP as our example when we talk about financial warfare.
Sure. Yeah, this is a great segue, because obviously we use the internet for all sorts of things, right? It's the internet of information, the internet of all these things. And we're kind of coming into this age of the internet of value, where we've interlaced technology and finance. And obviously crypto is the forefront of that because of, what it is. But yeah, so I think that my personal recommendation obviously is that when you pick wherever it is that you're going to buy your crypto from, I recommend having a few different places, two or three, a redundancy strategy. But obviously everyone's going to start with one, and then you're just going to repeat the process. But so my favorite kind of like thing, obviously you're going to want to pick a strong password for the account that you're creating, right? Because you're going to have to create some sort of account somewhere. We could just use, an exchange as an example. You're going to go in, put,
Mhm.
create an email, username, password, insert all your information. And they're going to give you something that's a key, right? Because again, we're coming back to what is technology, right? And it is essentially a digital lockbox, right? When you close your account, it is put into encryption, right? Your account is encrypted, which means that it is unreadable unless you have the ability to decrypt it. And so what your key is your password. What your password is your ability to unlock your account. Now, it's very different than other kind of accounts where, like, if you forgot your password, someone can just reset your password and you're authenticated and you're back in your account. The actual everything in the account is obfuscated by encryption. So if you don't have that key, you can't get, there is no one that can get back in there and unscramble it. So keeping that key, the passphrase, the key phrase, whatever they're calling it nowadays, right? They're going to give you this set of letters, seed phrase. There's all these different words for it, but they're going to give you this thing that's very important. It's more important than your password. And my favorite thing to suggest to people, obviously, is like you can buy these very small, thin sheets of metal and go to an engraver nearby and have
Yeah, I've
them
seen that, dude.
engrave the.
I didn't
Go
mean to
ahead.
interrupt you, man. But like, sorry, I
No,
didn't mean
yeah,
to interrupt you, man. But
yeah.
my YouTube, dude, I have no idea what the hell's going on with it. But I keep getting these damn Elipal. Have you heard of this Elipal?
Nuh-uh, not yet.
Dude, it's just like a metal like cigar box looking thing that you lock it up, and it has you unscrew the plates, and it has these like break apart like letters, and you like slide in your phrases, your keys in there, and you lock it up, and it's like a little metal box that you actually can like carry around or store.
Oh, cool. Yeah, same exact concept, right? Sounds like more industrialized. And I like that because some people go out there and they're like, "Oh, well, order your digital plate from us, send us what you want to put in on it, and we'll send you an engraved piece of metal with your key phrase." Well, I don't like that idea because you're sending out the most important key phrase across a digital infrastructure, and then all someone has to do is find your wallet, and they already have the thing.
Yeah.
Going to someone in person, or like that thing that you said where they send it to you and then you kind of like almost like punch card it out, kind of like sounds like essentially that way, nobody else out there on the internet has your key phrase. Kind of a cool idea. I'm always skeptical of companies when like especially YouTube
It's
advertisements. But
spamming you on YouTube. Yeah. I'm like, I
yeah,
don't know about this, man. I get like that ad every other ad. It drives me nuts.
wild. And yeah, like it's a great concept, but it's like, who's pushing this, and like what's going on there? But to kind of like further it on from like security, because like you said, you know, the crypto world is kind of like one of the subjects that we want to talk about. And I think that
Yeah.
XRP is a great segue into that, right? We're kind of advancing upon like cybersecurity, which I know we didn't talk about a lot of the technical things for cybersecurity. But what I want to drive home is kind of like you want to start thinking about methodology. What is your methodology? And then you can start learning practices. And then so with this whole crypto thing, XRP, this is one of my favorite things ever to discuss. I think it is one of the coolest applications of technology. Unfortunately, there is a sinister side to it, right? But I think that at essence, the idea of creating money and removing having a central authority to govern it, right? A bank to overrule all things. I think that idea at core is one of the most beautiful concepts I've ever heard in my life.
No, for sure. Um,
And
oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
go, no, please, please. Yeah. If you want to kind of like, where do you want to start with that? Shall we just kind of hop in? I've got some notes here that I could
Oh, dude, I
say.
want floor is yours, man. Like, go for it. Like wherever you like to take it. I just wanted to
Cool.
like segue us over to the crypto side. And I'm sorry if I took us too short on cybersecurity. We could pivot back to it.
No,
Um,
no,
but
that's
go,
fine.
man. Okay, cool, cool. Yeah, go take it from here, man. On XRP.
Yeah, because with cybersecurity, we could get into the weeds for days about use this, don't use that. I think it's more important, and I think that we should do more probably probably episodes. But I think it's important to just for the listeners out there, just start thinking about what you do on a computer and just start thinking about like, oh, where am I digitally? And that's a really good step instead of being like, oh, I need to use this VPN or this or that. It's like you want to start understanding what you could refer to as your threat landscape, your attack surface. And then once you start that, then you could start thinking about like, oh, how do I protect it? Because if you don't understand where you are, what you're doing, then protection methods won't help at all. But to segue into XRP, which my buddy and I call ZERP XRP because other things. It's just kind of like a fun way to say instead of being like XRP all the time. It's just like ZERP 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 flies off your tongue. But so I think that before I hop right into the XRP kind of notes that I have, I think that taking it back to another one of my favorite subjects that's overarching for all of these things, right? Because you need digital protection for a reason. Um, is warfare. And I think that fourth and fifth generational warfare are the overarching kind of like, I guess you could say, archetypes of what I think about. And fourth generation warfare is espionage warfare, and fifth generation warfare is warfare of the mind and perception. So I think that kind of like thinking about finance as being part of that battlefield, right? Protecting yourself, digital well-being, financial well-being is also part of that spectrum, and learning how to protect yourself there. And then, of course, the blend of the two, right? Digital and financial well-being blending into crypto well-being, which is where we are now. And so finance is part of the battlefield now. Digital finance is part of the battlefield. Our legacy systems are slow and opaque and controlled. We have our banking industry is very slow, and it is designed that way. Recently someone just put it to me that for banks, friction is a feature. That's how they make their profit. They make some insane amount of $1 billion a year off of being slow with your transactions. So that's where new things like XRP come into play, because something is going to have to replace these banking systems in this new modern world. I understand that people don't want to go there. There's a lot of people that don't want to be a part of this digital financial world, but we're here, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
obviously I obviously love it. But there's a lot of negative implications, but I think it's really cool to be a part of this time in history, but we're here. There's nothing we can do about it. Everyone's like, well, if we just don't use it, if we just, veto, we won't, we can dodge it. Kind of like vote by non-participation.
We want
Well,
fiat
that's
paper money.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, but sadly, this isn't a voting system. This is an efficiency system, and technology is, you could say, foundational to our world at this point in time, right? Like that could change tomorrow, right? If all the power turned off. Obviously, technology isn't going to be anything, but at this point in time, it's part of our world. So, these banks are going to be evolving into the digital world, right? Onto the blockchain in essence. And I think that for a long time, a lot of people were wondering, like obviously the Bitcoiners all want, everyone to go onto the Bitcoin network. But I think that when you look at the scene, you want to look at who's working with regulators. And XRP, having gone through a lawsuit and having always kind of played by the rules with banks and the digital world, is now setting itself up to be kind of the let me put it like this. I don't think that crypto is just going to be money. I think it's going to be geopolitical infrastructure. And I think that XRP is going to be the blockchain of that infrastructure. And maybe that's kind of a
So
good place to pause for a second.
yeah, sure. I mean, so. I mean, when they hijacked XRP, it was because they wanted to understand the architecture, right? And they wanted to figure out how they could do, like, how they could essentially build what they've been trying to roll out. I mean, like, arguably, like we're watching the petrodollar kind of, um, it's at risk right now. I know we'll talk a little bit about Iran and fourth generational, fifth generational warfare in a second. Um, but when it comes to XRP, am I wrong in like that they basically took that as their test bed to understand how blockchain works, how the ledger would work, how they could essentially manipulate it and then create, one world currency, if you will, right? CBDCs. Am I correct in that?
Yeah. Okay. So you ask your question gets you kind of back great on track on the rails. So my personal theory, obviously, like let's take it back a second. Most of your listeners probably will know, what cryptocurrency is and such like that. But essentially it is the digital rollout for the replacing of the banking system. Regardless of, who you think created cryptocurrency, right? I speculate that Bitcoin was the blockchain that was released as a prototype. It was kind of like let's see if we can even get this running, right? Like, can we even
Yeah.
get a blockchain to work? Can we get it to adopt? Can we get people to be on it? And once that kind of like got moving, right? Because Bitcoin was dropped, not too long after the financial crisis, and it went on for a while, and then started to kind of get adoption. I don't know what, like 11 and 12, and I mean like minimal adoption. I don't mean any sort of real adoption, but I mean that was kind of when it started to grow more. And XRP came out, I can't remember if it was 12 or 13, but it
Yeah.
was kind of like after this thing called Bitcoin had been around, and a lot of people hadn't even heard of it. And this blockchain technology, the engineers of XRP, the creators of XRP, it was a team of people. They looked at Bitcoin and they were like, "Oh, that's a really cool idea. What if we did that for the institutional realm? What if we did that for institutional banking and global banking? Instead of just being this random thing on the internet, Bitcoin, let's make it for institutions." And so they set out to kind of like start by doing that. And right away, not too long into it, they got hit with that lawsuit by the SEC. And the
Mhm.
SEC
Yeah.
was saying the charge of the lawsuit, right, which is, I think, a smokescreen, but the charge was um, that XRP is a security and that they were trading securities incorrectly all of these years. And there was, that was obviously a problem because it was, you know, they were misallocating their funds or whatever. I'm not sure all the words, but they were misusing their resource,
Right.
and that there was a fine to that because it was endangering the customer. But like you said, I think that what the lawsuit really was more, right. They didn't want the world of technology to take off without the legacy bankers and kind of like boomer Senate to not really understand what was going on, right? These people, it was moving at the speed of technology. All of the kids were picking it up. Millennials got it. Gen X got it. Gen Z, obviously, when they started to be around, they understood it. But the people who ran the legacy financial systems and the banking infrastructure and all these people, they were not ready for some sort of technological advancement like that. So, like you said, I think they hit it with that lawsuit for multi-purpose, right? I think for two reasons. I think, well, maybe for more than that, right? But we could say for two underlying agenda reasons. One, like you said, for them to be able to study it, like what is this? What are we looking at? And it was able for them to be able. It was a way for them to be able to ask questions in court and establish legal answers, right? It wasn't just like oh, tell me what your product is. I want to read about it in a blog online. It's like, no, you're going to describe this in front of lawyers. And I think that the second part of that was actually they were using this lawsuit with XRP to write a lot of what we now know as the Clarity Act. I think that this lawsuit was actually all about creating the regulation. And obviously, that would come from understanding what it is that they're looking at. So it was like this dual purpose, like, whoa, pause, wait a minute, we're boomers, we have to catch up, we still don't know emails, we have to learn about this new financial infrastructure that's now being presented at a regulatory level, right? Bitcoin was never going to be the regulatory coin. It
Right.
obviously has a purpose, it's not going anywhere. But then they were like, okay, so we have to pause this because it was starting to take off. We have to learn about it. And then, of course, we have to get to the point where we want to write legislation about it because we are headed that way. And I think that even though they pretend, even though Elizabeth Warrens of the world, they pretend that we're not going in that world and that they're trying to oppose it, they're really just putting on a show. Everybody knows that we're going to this world. And and except for some people who are still hodling fiat, right? But
Yeah.
so I think does that kind of answer that my perspective of your question there?
No, yeah, totally. Um, I also feel like in a lot of ways it was like this, I don't know if you were familiar with Max Kaiser, but I remember way back in the day, man, when I used to listen to like Alex Jones a lot. And I've, just quick shout out. I've seen Alex Jones, man. It looks like he's starting to open his eyes to a lot of things. He's like coming back. I don't know if it's because he's pivoting because he thinks things are going in the wrong direction. He doesn't want to associate it with it anymore. If he's actually coming back to the light, I'm just, rooting for Alex Jones. But um, when it
Come
came
back
to
to us.
dude, I just crush it. Like up until like 2 weeks ago, every time I see him post, it just crushes me. I'm like, dude, I miss you. Please come back. Like we need Alex Jones, dude. The guy's like our Paul Revere in a lot of ways. People hate him,
Right.
but he's been proven right on a lot of stuff. He got a couple things wrong, but when you look at his record, I'd say he's batting, a good 800 out of,
Yeah.
he's been pretty spot on. But going back to what you're talking about, like back in like 2012, 2013, I remember he had like Max Kaiser on all the time, right? And Max Kaiser was just like pushing Bitcoin hard, right? And I remember back in the day, he always mentioned, he's like, this is the pirate currency, bro. Max Kaiser's a cool guy. He's like the 80s Wall Street guy. So he's got that little swag to him. He's just like, this is it. This is the pirate currency. This is uncentralized, unregulated currency, freedom to do what you want, spend how you like. And that's what Bitcoin started as. And I think you encapsulated what the creators of XRP had intended. They're like, hey man, like we could take this to the next level. We could do something completely different and actually build something more complex and more akin to a actual system of transaction, right? And then but it was in that unregulated pirate world, and like, when it came to like, the India company, like they need to get their booty, so they went after the pirates, right? Like you're not messing with my trade, right? So like in a lot of ways, I think that personally, that's what I think it was that they could not allow it to exist because they couldn't let us peons have any capability of not being wired into the grid system, financial grid system. And that's my belief. That's why I believe that the SEC had seized it, was to learn it, basically understand what they can do to pull. They knew, like you said, I think you encapsulated it perfectly. Like they knew this is the future. They were behind. They had no idea what to do, so they just abused their damn power and took it. And then they were like, how do we ensure that our institutional banking systems, how do we, International Monetary Fund, World Bank, I'm gonna get tinfoil hat twist, Rothschild banking, central banking, all this stuff. Like, how do we stay on top of everything? And so they had to take that, and they basically use that as their blueprint for what they probably are, in my opinion. I think they already have it made. Like when we talk CBDCs, I don't know if you ever listened to Whitney Webb. Have you ever listened to her?
I haven't listened to her, but I've read both volumes of One Nation Under Blackmail.
Oh, dude, that's, I mean, even better. I've only listened to her. I've never read her material, which is, I mean, like, shame on me. But like so you already know, like that's what she's always talked about. She's like, they hijacked this crap. She actually thinks it's all dark now. Like it's just not good. Like she's kind of very, like, in my opinion, like from what I understand, she portrays it as like very black pillish. Like it's doomed. It's all co-opted, right? But I still have faith. I still have faith
I
in
do
it.
too.
I don't think I don't believe in everything in absolutes. I think there's glimmers of hope in everything.
If it was all absolute, they wouldn't need to be doing these things.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, they don't have total control. They can kiss my ass. These controllers do not have total control over all of us, and they never will, because you can't shackle humanity. It's not going to happen. There's just always going to be people that are never going to.
They are sure gonna try, but whew.
They're doing it right now, brother. They're really trying right
Man,
now.
this is they're charging down the field for the touchdown, but yeah,
I mean, look what they're
they're not
doing.
good. They're putting in effort.
Well, look what they're doing in Iran, dude. Like, I have been harping on this shit since June, dude. I'm like, we cannot go to war with these people. This is going to have such a dramatic economic impact on the freaking planet. Like, you people that are like, oh yeah, let's go kill some Iranians. I'm like, dude, one, they've survived Romans, Mongols, Arabs, Turks, Russians, British. Like, they're still here, man. Who else is here? The Chinese. I
Yeah.
mean, what other multi millennia civilizations? Like, I mean, I'm sure there's others, but like the two that come to my mind is China and Iran. Like, they're still here. They have
Yeah.
been here since the book was written.
Yeah.
Like, they're still here, and like we're seeing it now. Like, the war was never. I'm sorry, man. I know we're going super off topic,
No,
but like,
this is a great segue into Iran. So cook
oh
it.
yeah, I mean, yeah, fair enough. I mean, but like, we like no Strait of Hormuz. Like, it's not about the Strait of Hormuz. It's about freeing Iranians. Then it's like 2 days ago, it's like, I'm gonna blow them back to the Stone Age. It's like, what happened to like your whole premise, like from the January protests, which we don't know how many people died. I'm sure we knew Mossad was there. We knew CIA was there. We know there was people clad in black firing into crowds. I'm not saying that the Islamic Republic's innocent. I'm sure they shot people too. I mean, they're not. They don't have a glorious track record as a government, But like, there are things that have been in motion to ensure that a hegemony by them can never be established, because the hegemonies, like, that's attempted to be architected for whatever the hell they're trying to do, is the Gulf states and Israel, right? Like, that's the hegemony they want for the region, right? So like, they're like, save the people. We're saving the people. Now we're blowing up the people. The first bomb we dropped is killing children. Strait of Hormuz is untouched. And then like, it was like Iran sat back and knew, like, toe to toe, like, if we're gonna go, like, I'm gonna jump in the ring with you. Like, I'm gonna come in with loaded. They're like, I'm coming with loaded gloves. Like, I'm 5'9", you're 6'5". You think you could beat my ass? I'm gonna let you beat the crap out of me, but I got these loaded gloves. I'm just gonna crack your jaw. And the way they cracked the jaw was through the economy. I mean, look at what they've done. Look what happened today. I mean, they allowed, Trump is telling the EU, NATO, like, y'all go get your own, go open the damn strait for yourself. We as America, we don't need that shit, right? And then what happened today? A French vessel was allowed to pass. Dude, that is huge. Like, that's
Wow.
huge.
I hadn't
Like,
heard about that yet.
oh yeah, man. And then I don't know if you heard. I mean, and for the audience, like, everything I'm saying is like stuff I've read. Nothing I'm saying is like, I can't confirm it as like fully corroborated, but I heard it. I've seen it from multiple
We can
sources.
only go so far with our verification.
No, for sure. But like, like when I'm hearing like retired Colonel Daniel Davis, and I'm hearing like John Kiriakou, and I feel like these are credible individuals. Some people may disagree, but I don't on a gut level feel like they're being dishonest. But they've confirmed, they're claiming to have confirmed sources that, and I think this one was proven true. An F-15 was shot down.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is like,
Yeah, like an
yeah.
F-15, an A-10 Warthog was apparently shot down in the Strait.
Wow.
Now they just confirmed, I think I heard an F-16 was shot down, and then a Black Hawk that went in for the rescue mission. And apparently one pilot, since we've been talking, that pilot's been found or like discovered or rescued. They sent a Black Hawk in. I believe they got the co-pilot, but they took small weapons fire and sustained injuries. So like, and then it goes back to like what we were talking about, like, fourth generational, fifth generational warfare that you want to talk about, Miss, like that psychological kind of like game it's at the forefront now. Like, all we talk about today is psyops, and people don't even realize that's that 5 generational warfare you talk about. Like, Americans under psyops every day. We were for COVID before that. In the future, until we change it, it's not gonna change, right? But like, you have Iran essentially feigning defeat, and then they're shooting shit down. What are they shooting them down with, Mist? I thought we obliterated 100% of their air defense. How the hell are they shooting down F-15s, F-16s, A-10s, bro?
Yeah.
Like,
So this is another one of my favorite subjects, and it was really unfortunate that we went to this conflict with Iran, because in my early days of studying cybersecurity and hacking and stuff, I was listening to, any knowledge that I could on the subject, and I was learning about, hackers around the world, what we call advanced persistent threats, APTs, or what you could call as, government funded hackers, right? Nation state hackers. So I learned about this really, I don't want to say cool, right? Because it involves death, right? But these things are kind of amazing. But anyway, I learned, so obviously everyone has heard about Stuxnet, and that was where Iran had a enrichment facility that was entirely off the grid in the mountains out in the middle of nowhere with closed off access, and we had to figure out a way to get a virus into that system, and we did. And it collapsed those enrichment facilities and set back their nuclear program or whatever. Well, obviously Iran was pissed about this, so they went around um, looking for it, right? And they wound up hacking the CIA and following the CIA handlers, right? They found, well, they found the informants in Iran, and then they found out how the informants were talking to the CIA because they had to use digital infrastructure, and it was kind of cool. It was like, oh, if you log into your yoga website at 4:15 p.m., there's a little 1 pixel that you click on the screen, and it opens up this link for you to be able to transmit documents, and then at 4:16 it's gone. And it was like really cool, right? Like kind of like espionage tactics. Well, Iran found it, and so then they traced it digitally, and then they went and found the handlers in real life, and then they followed the handlers to all of their other informants, all of their other connections, all of their other people. And they did that across Iran, China, and Russia. And then they went and they presented this information to China and Russia. And they were like, hey, we've got all this data for you. We would like to sell you this data. And China and Russia, of course, were like, yeah,
Yeah.
who wouldn't want to know all the CIA agents in your nation? And it was the greatest loss of CIA life ever. And
I didn't even know
Iran
about
did
that.
it. Yeah, yeah, because it eliminated our CIA presence in Russia, China, and Iran. And you've got to think about how vast that is. And of course, the CIA can never admit to these kind of things because then it would have to admit that it had active, ongoing investigations with these people, and this person was there and they worked for them. There's a lot of things that they won't admit to this case, but it's all been proven, right? This, I don't have the links and stuff on me. If people down the line needed to, we could find it, but it's all provable. But anyway, so they went and found the handlers, sold the data, and China and Russia and Iran, this was like 2013, 2014, killed all of the CIA agents. I think it was like 2013, right? And so you think about like, okay, all the CIA agents are dead. Well, then 2014 happens with Crimea. It kind of like really starts, our quote unquote, and I don't like to call them our enemies because I think that really we shouldn't be considering them enemies, but they are strategically across from us on the board, right? So they are kind of like opponents.
They're
Um,
adversaries for sure. I
yeah,
mean, like, from our perspective as Americans, yeah.
yeah. So, these adversaries, that was when they really started to gain ground in the world, like, and you could even maybe argue that because of all that is why it culminated in China releasing, COVID-19 to whatever happened there, right? But this could all lead to like their attempt at taking over our, it's not that they want to destroy America, right? It's that they want to remove us from the top dog position, right? They want to undermine us. So anyway, to take this all the way back, right, is you can see how something like as simple as that, right? This hack that they found through an informant that led to the greatest loss of CIA life ever. Well, that was when I started to understand. It was like, oh, Iran is they're studying us. They are creating their entire warfare strategy against countering us. And we haven't advanced our warfare strategy in 80 years, right? Not really. We've gotten cooler technology, we've gotten faster things that blow up more, cooler this or that, but it is all still in the realm of kinetic warfare. I'm still using a device or a ship or as something to launch something at you to take out, my targets. Um, and we're great at it, right? We have the greatest, coolest toys in the world for kinetic warfare. But
From
like you
20th
said,
century warfare versus 21st century warfare, right? Which we've seen in
exactly.
Russia and Ukraine.
Exactly, exactly. So, like you said, Iran knew that it's this, maybe like 5'9" fighting this 6'5" Jim Jones kind of person. Of course, I'm not going to sit there and just be like, yeah, the rules are only boxing, right? Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be like, no, we're going to fight in my arena. And so, Iran has spent 30 years or more studying how to perfectly counteract our military strategy, and that is by becoming a decentralized, asymmetric combatant, right? When we're talking about espionage warfare, we mean small cells that operate independently. They don't need to call back to headquarters. There is no connection back to a general. You like, this is your job. This is the template for the mayhem that you need to cause, financial, drug, terrorism, whatever your kind of like realm is, and you're going to go out and do it. And we may never see you again. And good luck. Go with God. And don't fucking call us. You can't call us, right? Like there is no. So these things out there, are warfare, and it very much was exemplified right in the beginning when Trump thought that by bombing the Ayatollah guy that was going to be all done, right? The first
Yeah. Or
kind of
kill their
like
post.
major death, right?
Like ridiculous.
He's like, oh, we're going to shock value them. We're going to kill this guy. And we're going to, like, we took out your leader. The rest of the snake will fall. Well, they've built their entire military strategy around being able to operate autonomously with no central
Can I inter-
directives, right? Go
can I
ahead.
interject real quick?
Yeah.
So like do you know, like, for example, like they've split the country into, like, I believe it's 32 autonomous military districts that are all independent of you, exactly how you said it, Mist. Like they literally have 32 independent military districts, all functioning autonomously, full redundancy. You take out, let's say, one city, they got 31 other military districts ready to go, 5 levels of redundancy. Like you said, have all they have done is plan for this battle. And it's like that foreign minister. Remember, he was like on, I forget what, it was an American news network. And the guy's like, "Are you not afraid of an American ground invasion?" And the guy goes, "Hey, we're waiting for him," and starts smirking. Like we don't want this shit, dude. We don't want
No,
to go there.
no, we don't. And to be fair, Iran has, so ever since I learned about that, I've had my eye on Iran. My kind of like, one of my catchphrases is like, do not underestimate Iran. They're one of the most brilliant minds in the world. And especially when it comes to the battlefield of the computer, right? Not only, and I think, obviously the technology at the beginning of this war is wild too, right? They're hypersonic missiles and all this crazy stuff that they've built, right? But, um, Iran has long honestly been telling us, the world, like, do not come over here. Do not use your traditional warfare. Do not think that your methods are going to work. Do not do this to us. And we as Americans, like, we just think that we can throw our big old swangin around, and it's like, but like, my thing is like, when an enemy is telling you something, listen to them. It doesn't mean that, like, it doesn't mean like, oh, believe them or anything like that, but like, when your enemy is telling you, like, over and over and over and over, like, do not do this, we are prepared for you to do this, we are ready for you to do this, we've been planning for you to do this, you are stepping into what we want you to do, like, you are falling into our trap, like, they are giving us warnings. They've given us warnings, for at least the last year, of like, don't do this. And yet we just feel like we're so bold and big and bad and
Uber.
untouchable and mighty that we don't have to heed those warnings. And I think that this was, the image that I get in my head when I think about our first strike on Iran, it's like one of those, I can't remember if it was like a video game or a movie or something, but probably like a video game, right? Like, and you like strike the big boss and you're like, yeah, I got him. And then he bursts into like 1,000 little different beings and you're like, oh no, now I have a room
Yeah.
full of them. Yeah, yeah. You're like, oh, I struck the big boss. Cool, I got him. And now there's like 1,000, and you're like, oh no. That's exactly kind of like how I view what happened in Iran. And I really do. I think that President Trump underestimated them. I think he didn't listen. I think he had bad advisors, obviously with agendas too.
Well,
I'm not saying that he can blame it all on everyone else because he made the decisions, but I really think that he underestimated Iran. I thought that he was, I think he was kind of riding the high from the Maduro capture, which was truly incredible too. Let's give credit where
it
credit
was
is
it was
due.
it was a brilliant operation. No one could take that away
It was amazing.
from the military. It was I was scared shitless when it was happening. I was like, oh my god, here we go. And it was done in like an hour and a half or something like less than
Yeah,
that. Just
yeah,
done. Like we got the dude, we got his wife. We had already basically installed the vice president as like our puppet. Like it was wild.
yeah, yeah. It was like, yeah, it was amazing, right? And he was riding off that high, but Venezuela is a very different nation than Iran. Iran has been, like you said, dug in forever, and they've all, and much like Poland, their borders have been tested on all sides repeatedly for centuries. They have learned to like leave me alone, and we're going to make sure that we can stop you from messing with us. And so,
Even when they were conquered, even
yeah,
when they were conquered, whoever their conqueror was assimilated to them. Alexander the Great, the Seleucid Empire, assimilate his army. Eventually they were over. They're taken out. How that ended. It was a terrible end, but that was the strategy. It was like welcome them and let's assimilate them to how we do things. And every one of them ended up adopting Persian culture. Even the Mongol hordes that wiped out. I think they argued between 85 to 90% of the Persian population was wiped out, killed, culled by the Mongols. That remaining 10% was able to assimilate this horde.
the
You know,
hordes.
it's just like, and these are people we're messing with, like the nation of like poetry and intelligence, mathematics, philosophy. These aren't like, and I'm not casting shade on Arabs because there's like beautiful Arab poets and stuff, but like, and I'm not casting shade at anybody. Okay, I just want to be very clear. I know that probably came off bad, but like what I'm trying to get at is like this is
It's
an
a very rich
established.
culture.
It's just an established culture that's been around for a long time. That's been adopted by many other ethnic groups. Many other cultures have adopted aspects of Persian culture, and say what you will about the Islamic Republic. I'm personally not a fan of them, but I believe in a nation's sovereignty. But anyway, I digress, man. I'm sorry.
No, no, it's all kind of important, right? Because that's the thing is like, we've never had to face an adversary like Iran. And I understand, that if you're talking to an American military personnel or a veteran or something, they're going to instantly grit their teeth with Iran because they had to deal with
Yeah.
Iranian funded terrorists in Iraq and Afghanistan that were killing American troops. Iran was killing American troops. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that they're always a good people, right? Like our troops were dying at the hands of Iranian bombs and stuff like that, which is obviously terrible. And we could get into the ethics of like I mean, we don't have to get into the ethics of like,
We can
should
talk
we
about
have been
whatever you
there?
want,
Should we
brother.
not? Yeah, should we have been there? Should we have not been there? Like that's, that could be going a lot of places, right? But, directly, our veterans have had brothers and friends who have died at the hands of Iranian bombs. So I can understand why they're like, oh, we have to remove Iran as a threat. But it's like, part of me is like, well, what if we just stopped being the threat that Iran felt that it was having to defend itself from? Like, if Trump really is kind of like passing off this, like, oh, you go defend the strait yourself, it's your fucking problem. Like, you want to go do it. I would love that, honestly, because no other nation is going to do what we did to Iran. They're all looking like at this whole debacle and they're like, dang. Sure, America's been using these crazy weapons, and yeah, they've been hitting their targets with these missiles and stuff like that. But they're really kind of seeing that we're not able to just kind of like throw our weight around, and that there is this other group of people out there that, sure, maybe we're bombing the fuck out of them and killing all their people, but they're really kind of holding against us. And I think that, no other nation like NATO maybe is like, if NATO was to take us on one on one, sure, maybe they would be able to like, cause some issues to us. But I would argue that probably they're not going to be as strong. So why would NATO want to go in there after Iran has showed kind of like that? Yeah, it'll take its punches, but it's going to, throw some back at us. Why would NATO want to go in there and be like, well, we're just going to waste, manpower, missiles, and all these things? I really think that if we stop being kind of like this aggressive presence in the area, and look, I understand that there's all these terrorisms and all this thing, like, but like, there's terrorists here. We don't need to have bases over there. We need to deal with the people here.
Yeah,
Um,
dude.
and
We don't even know. I think I saw heard Joe Kent the other day. He was talking about like they don't know, no, but like they I'm pulling a Candace there. They don't know, no, but they know. Like there's like 18,000 or 20,000 at minimum, like eight, sleeper agents in this country just through like the when we had the open border. Like what about the ones that have been here for like a generation?
yeah,
Like and like we just have so like dude we have so much shit we got to fix in our own country. Why are we there? And like they're sitting and waiting. These are patient people. Like these are Sun Tzuian types of people in the East. They've, like you said, like they've been attacked on all their borders for millennia. You think they're just gonna go gung ho and like be like, oh, I'm gonna fight the greatest military in the world face to face? No, dude, they're feigning. They're feigning things. I just fear for our soldiers, dude. I really don't want this ground invasion to happen. I'm seeing these generals, forced resignation, but then I'm seeing other things that there's more than a dozen that have potentially generals and officers that have either resigned or have been fired, right? Let's just call it that, because they're in protest to this thing. Because it's like, what are we going to do? We don't even have we have 450,000 soldiers in reserve. We have 50,000 in the region. Dude, we need a couple million like ground forces if we're going to like do anything there. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, put a military expedition unit on like an island where there's gonna be missiles pointed at them and suicide drones? Like,
yeah.
like, are we gonna blood sacrifice our soldiers? Like, what is
This
this gonna be
isn't
all?
Normandy anymore.
Say that again.
This isn't Normandy anymore.
No, dude. This like I want you to actually maybe talk a little bit about the fifth generational aspects of this, man, because I think this is a good segue to that. We've kind of covered like the subterfuge. You elucidated it a little bit with like the story of like Stuxnet and how like Iranian hackers were able to use technology to basically pinpoint and eliminate our CIA um, through Russia and China. Like where is this kind of like when you think about like the asymmetrical perspective of warfare that it seems Iran is portraying? Like, just give thoughts on that.
Yeah. So, this that you bring up. I mean, like Iran lives in fourth and fifth generation warfare. Sure, they've probably got some third generation warfare, obviously missiles and things like that. But so with the fifth generational warfare, I'm very glad that you brought up about them being patient, because everyone's like, oh, well, why haven't they done anything yet? Why haven't they done it yet? And one of my, I learned this from someone long time ago, but it's like, everyone loves to be like, well, why hasn't Iran done anything yet? Why hasn't Russia done anything yet? Why hasn't China done anything yet? Why haven't anyone done anything yet? And I just think the first thing that comes to my head is like, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. Like we're clearly making a big mistake and they're just loving it. Like we're walking right into whatever they want us to do. And I think that's a very dangerous territory to be in, obviously in a militaristic standpoint. You do not want to be where your enemy wants you to be, especially if they planned for it, right? Like, not good. But and I think so, like the fifth generational warfare stuff could be considered the warfare of perception and cyber warfare. It's not necessarily that they're going to, it's not that they could stop a ground force necessarily with, fifth generational warfare, but they could definitely like sway the rest of the world with it, right? So, well, okay,
Exactly. Hearts and
first,
minds, right?
yeah, let me take this back to the technological thing, and then we'll get into like the propaganda aspect of fifth generational
Sure.
warfare that they're
Sure.
using against us. But
Cool.
like, for example, like you said, they they've really been kind of like asking us to not make them do, fifth generational warfare. They really have kind of been, I can't remember where I saw it, but they've kind of said a few things like, look, if you attack our power, we're going to attack your power. And everybody's
Yeah.
like, oh, what are you going to do? Launch a drone from fucking Iran? It's like, no, they're going to activate their digital sleeper cell in the power plant and ransomware the fucking power plant and lock it all out, and then maybe they'll have, a sleeper cell down the road do some physical damage with a bomb or something, right? Like it doesn't have to be this like big, bodacious, like, oh, we're gonna fly a plane all the way around the world and land it in America and hit your power grid. Like they
Right.
can do it from a laptop, anywhere in the world. And that's part of the sleeper cells that are so dangerous out there, is like not just the ones that are out there ready to, maybe whatever it is, put an ID on the side of the road or whatever a physical 3G sleeper cell would do. But there's all these digital sleeper cells out there, right? And they could be technically anywhere and be in the room with you, right? They don't have to be in the room with you. They don't have to be in the city. They don't have to be at the power station in order to hack it. They could be anywhere in the world to do so. And I think, really they understand the gravity of the power that they hold, in terms of like being able to turn off our power, or turn, hack our systems or cause a lot of damage. And you could even say, there wasn't any accreditation to Iran, which of course our media would never do, even if it was. But these last couple of major hacks that just happened, you had that Axios network hack, which was insane. I'm still kind of like, I don't want to speak on that one too much because of the gravity of that. And I'm
I didn't
still
know
like,
that.
they don't even know what happened. But the Axios hack, there was that one other one that just happened. Gosh, I can't even think of them. But there's like three kind of like major hacks that just happened right here. And
They just did one in
and
Israel, right? Like that one hacker group that they like basically deleted 22 terabytes of data.
yeah, wild, right? Like that's
They put
so
the video
much.
up as they deleted file by file. They like put the video out on the internet where they're like, click, click, oh, try again, click, and like
Yeah,
deleted everything.
wild, right? And for them, like, and what a bold move that is, right? For me to be in your system to manually delete things in front of your face, like not even automated delete. Like I'm so in your system that I feel like I can right click and then delete by,
Like I'm remote accessing your desktop while you're on it, and you're seeing your mouse move, and I'm opening files, and there ain't jack shit you can do, and I'm just
yeah,
deleting everything.
you're just staring at your screen trying to like unplug or deep. You're like, oh, what do I fuck? Oh my God, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that, really needs to be mentioned, is like, we could entirely, quote unquote, remove whatever militaristic structure we say and claim victory, right? We could say at some point in time, oh, well, we've killed, the 100 people that we wanted to kill in the leadership or whatever. But there could always be one of these cells out there with a laptop just ready to like click, you know and we don't know how much damage, the thing about fifth generational cyber warfare is that, again, to take it all the way back to the person, is like, we don't know that the people out there that have been scammed, we don't know that these conservative grandmas that have been scammed, had their life savings taken from them, that have been hacked and locked out of their stuff or their practices shut down. We don't know that those haven't been some sort of nation state hacker from Iran that are causing damage on the personal level. And we're just not adding it up to warfare because we don't look at it in that sense. We're just looking at it like, oh, there's these random scammer hacks out there. Oh gosh, I hate, call centers, scam centers, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, we don't know that these aren't just coordinated, not even coordinated, but just demoralizing and kind of like destructive acts at like the very mesh network of our society, and just at a very personal level. Like, and another thing that I thought about to kind of take it to the next step is that I have been recommending recently, and I haven't said it too much publicly because I don't know about that, but we could kind of say it here. I think that everybody who is vocally, publicly in favor of the war in Iran needs, and especially if they were in any sort of military service, needs to be very aware of what's going on with their digital footprint right now. Because if I was Iran, If I was Iran, I would be looking for the people out there, not only the ones that could do something against me, like in the military. I'd be like, okay, who's making the decisions? I'd be looking for them digitally, right? Like Kash Patel, he was hacked, like his release of all his personal data. Like that would be a total target for me for Iran, would be like find Kash Patel. But it would also be to find the people in the city, right? It'd be for me to find the people in the city who have a digital record of like, oh, they bought every handgun bullet. Oh, they served in the military. Oh, they served in Iraq. Oh, they're very vocal about going to war with Iran. Like that's a very dangerous place to be in because, like if I wanted to cause a problem in a city with sleeper cells, I would want to do it as quietly as possible. And I would want to take out as many of those people as possible without making it a big scene,
Right.
or
Implausible
avoid.
denial. I know what you're talking about. We were not involved.
Yeah. Yeah, or yeah, and so they could very well be looking for those kind of people, and they could very well be looking digitally for anyone active duty. So it's a very dangerous time right now for people to be on the internet because of these things, like with how they found all those CIA agents. They hack you, they find you, and then maybe they could either come and eliminate you personally, right? And everyone's like, oh yeah, well they could freaking try, blah blah blah, and it's like, well, your weapons are only as good as you seeing the enemy first.
Yeah.
And if you don't know that they're coming for you, like that's a very dangerous place to be in, especially if you're arrogant about it. So those are just some of the examples of like kind of like how fifth generation warfare can like not only be used, against military, but against personnel. The other half of that would be like the propaganda. And I think that this is really actually kind of like the major press right now for them in the fifth generational warfare is for them to make us look like what they call the great Satan. They want us, they're, like when we hit that school with that rocket, and all those girls died, they've blasted that to the world. They're blasting to the world about how, look, America struck first. Look at what they're doing to us. Look at how they're threatening our power plants. Look at them bombing our cities. Look at them doing all these things against our citizens. And you know what? Regardless of whether the rest of the world is our ally or not on paper, they're still people and they feel just like people do. And Iran is really working at touching the hearts of the world, which is a
Exactly.
very big problem for us if it comes to the point where like the rest of the world is tired of us being bloodmongers. And that's another really dangerous line that we're walking here by continuing this path, is like not only could we like really lead to a great loss of life, show that we're not as strong as we think we are, but it also could turn the rest of the world against us because Iran is fully ready to display that, just like we would be ready, right? With our propaganda, they're fully
It's
ready
happening.
to affect the rest of the world. Yeah,
I mean, look
yeah,
at so like the example I gave with France. So you have the situation with France. They got one tanker through, but then Germany's. I think I just read that they have a. I don't know if it's a law or if it's some sort of like executive, some from Mertz, but essentially they put out something where if you're a male of the ages of 18 to I think 40, I might not have the range right, so everyone please check that out. But I'm pretty confident in this that they cannot leave the country for more than 3 months. That's kind of like I heard Matthew Ho talking about this, and it was essentially like, they're like preparing for like a draft almost. And it's like Europe is now the EU is doing different things. Like France is like, all right, man, like we need oil. Iran, what's up? Yes, we're gonna work with you. We'll exchange in yuan because that's the only way they can get the oil out, right? That's what Iran
yeah,
said. Like you have to not be a part of what Israel and the U.S. is doing, like you said, like creating the monster. And unfortunately, we're doing some monstrous shit. Let's be real here. We're blowing up bridges. We're threatening to blow up civilian power, which is a fucking war crime. So it feeds right into that propaganda machine. And I've been warning about this. They started this with Gaza, and Gaza is a absolute atrocity. At a minimum, it's ethnic cleansing. At a minimum, it's that, right?
yeah,
But then that's where they kind of started the whole hearts and minds thing. Like, look what they're doing. Look, America's not doing anything about this. We're here trying to help these people, which they are, but they're also supporting, rebel groups and like resistance groups that are not wholly good, right? Like these
yeah.
are not good people either.
They're not
But
helping with the good guys, but they're in there.
What's that?
They may not be in there with the good guys, but they're in there.
Yeah. I mean, and like they can obfuscate you, they can obfuscate the truth, just like we're getting it here, right? Where like they're like, although this group may be bad, look at what's happened to these people and how terrible it is, which it is terrible. And it is horrible and heinous and evil, right? And so your mind and your heart are going to be like, well, like although this group is not good, but they're relatively powerless because look at what's happened to them. You see what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
like to this, like to the people of Gaza, which I stand by as tragic. And I have to be honest and say October 7th was tragic. This, it wasn't the start of this shit. This shit's been going on there forever too, right? This crap. But like that day is a terrible day, right? But that day was a weaponized day on
yeah,
both sides. You can argue Israel had it. I think I just saw video on X that there was testimony from one of the soldiers that was a border guard, and he got the stand down order. They played the audio from his commanding officer, and his commanding officer, I don't know what's going on, but they're telling us not to do this patrol for 6 hours, which was the precursor to that terrible event, right? So you can argue the stand down, and you can argue what happened with Hamas doing the atrocity. But you can also argue Israel let it happen and allowed their own 9/11 to happen, which is like almost like Iran's like, thank you, right? Like, thank you for doing that because now we have the ability to change hearts and minds. And then you, like you said, you're seeing what happened in Iran. The very first bomb that drops in Iran hits a school of children, kills 160 plus kids and their teachers. And it was a double tap, by the way. I don't know if you've heard from if you listen to Scott Ritter, but the first bomb goes off. He explains that we're like they hit and they observe and they're like, okay, do we see people moving around? Is there movement? Whatever. And then boom, hit him again.
yikes.
And they double tap these kids. So like we've already lost the battle when it comes to hearts and minds for those that are on the fence, like around the world, like it's not all about changing the heart and the mind of the American. It's about changing the heart and the mind of the world and their perception of America. And they've been aces, in my opinion, on that. Because we just saw France capitulate and do whatever they had to do and acquiesce to get a tanker through. And now you may like going to your point about like the psychological warfare and like the virus of it, right? The spread of it. Like, look, it could potentially have ramifications in the EU. Like
Yeah.
it's that far. Like it's insane.
You bring up an excellent point, and then like Spain doing where they don't want to allow any military airplane flying to Iran, cannot enter their airspace.
Me too.
There's a lot of these things that are going on. And, America, they're like, oh, well, we don't care. We don't care. Like, oh, fuck them. It's the EU, whatever, fuck NATO, all this stuff. But it's like, we depend upon the
Allies.
world too. Yeah, we need allies in the
You don't
world.
shit on your allies, man.
Yeah, you don't shit on your allies. And like, and if you do shit on your allies, don't be surprised if after long enough they turn against us. And I'm really glad you brought up the economics because that's another aspect of fifth generational warfare where Iran is meeting us very well by demanding that we, the toll or tariff, right? If you want to call it that, be paid in yuan. Brilliant, right? Like it's a brilliant economic move. It's the exact same thing that we would do. We would go in there and we make you use the petrodollar, right? The US dollar. Well, they're going in there and they're saying we don't want to use this other one, right? And the fact that they have the leverage in order to make them be able to do that is insane. And it's very, very, very good play. Very not good for us in terms of like our economic power and stuff like that. And I think we'll make it through this, right? I'm not trying to
For
doom
sure.
and gloom America, but we have to be wise about that. We're not the most powerful anymore. There are other people who are powerful too. And it's kind of like we're all to that point where anybody could win a direct fight. Now, the thing that we had on our side forever is allies. We've had allies for so long, that we kind of like led and rallied and, have been there for and protected. But these people, they really were allies, a lot of them, because of trade, because of the US dollar, because they wanted to get better deals, right? They wanted growth, and we're providing growth, stable currency and things like that. I'm not going to go into the fact of like our dollar is not perfect. We're talking about in general, right? It was solid for growth for a long time. But we're getting to the point now where like, and I know everybody is just like, oh, BRICS is dead, BRICS is going to die, but clearly like people are paying in yuan for their oil to be delivered. So really it's not dead. And we have to be aware like, okay, they are creating an alliance. France and right now Iran right now are creating an economic alliance based on trade. And does that mean anything maybe in the long run? Maybe not. Maybe it's only temporary for now. Maybe France isn't creating this partnership. But what is really happening is there's this inception of partnership where France doesn't necessarily have to do business with us. They can do business with someone else, and maybe they could get a
Yeah.
better deal. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying exactly. Sorry, I get excited. Like, because
Yeah,
that's such
no,
like, exactly that.
it's so true, and like, why wouldn't you want to go somewhere where the better deal is? Like, we have so long, like, made people take the US dollar in order to, for loans, we've done predatory lending with the US dollar to nations. We've made countries do business with it through the petrodollar. We've made other, and in making other countries use it and also making them use it for the petrodollar, then we've also inflated it. We make them use it and then we inflate it, and then they own stockpiles of it and we devalue it and all these things. And it's very kind of like tumultuous for another country to be like, we're tired of you giving us money and then devaluing it. We're tired of that. And just not, it's not even like, oh, they're going to invade us and say fuck America. It's like, no, they're just going to stop voting on America with their dollar. They're going to start voting somewhere else. And I don't really know how this ties in yet, but it's kind of a cool thought that I had today. And by cool, I don't know if I mean cool, but it was like, oh, you know what? I realized I don't know how other countries get their currency. Right. Obviously, in America, we print the US dollar through the Federal Reserve, or the Federal Reserve then, coordinates with the mints, and we're printed like that. But I don't think that China has its own Chinese Federal Reserve. I think that the government is in charge of printing its money. And so I don't know, right? I don't know, but it's not like China's going to the Federal Reserve of America and be like, print us our yuan, right? They're printing their own currency. Like Greece is printing their own currency, as far as I know. Now, and I don't mean like Greece specifically, but that's kind of something that, like, I feel like there's kind of a play there because we are dependent upon a private party for our denomination, for our currency. Whereas I don't know if other countries necessarily are. And I don't know if that provides a danger or an attack surface or anything like that. But I was kind of thinking about that today. I was like, oh, and there are there economic implications for that? Is there something? And obviously I was thinking about it all just because it's like, well, I think that other countries, and the CBDC obviously coming in, right? We could tie that in, but I think that other countries really want to not be beholden to inflationary currency. I think that they want to build their nation up. They want to be like America, and I don't mean like be like America. They want to have the things that Americans have. They want to be able to grow their nations like America does. They want to be able to do those things, and they can't do that if they're always forced being used things that are being devalued or predatory lending.
Yeah, but like on the I'm no expert on finance, but like a lot of it has to do with like when you think of oil, people think of like they look at WTI or they look at Brent, like they look at West Texas oil and they look at that price, and then they say, and then they look at Brent oil price, the futures markets, and they're like, oh man, look, the America is at 100 and the Brent's at 115. We're okay, are we though? Because it's international, it's internationally traded, right? It's not like only local to us, right? And it's like consequences downstream. And so like when you have the problem of driving up energy costs and limited supply, then you force countries to like consider like those that may be buying treasury bonds, right, or hold bonds like American debt. They have to say, okay, well, shit, we're in deep shit. Like we got to figure out what we got to do. We're gonna have to sell these treasury bonds. But if they start selling the treasury bonds, it could potentially drive up the interest rates, and then you got yourself a real freaking problem on the dollar, right? And so like we're in that, and you know, we're in that kind of scenario right now. Like I don't know how many more weeks with this economic warfare that Iran is waging, that you know, I don't think it's like weeks away the dollar collapses, right? But like consequences downstream that actually reach us at our shores, if you will, right? Like when are like right now, you know, I have an 18-gallon tank in my truck, and 91 for like 17.2, like because my wife drove the car almost to empty. I tell her don't do that because the fuel pump. I always tell her don't do that shit. But it was like almost $80. Like that's insane, dude. I like up like a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, I was paying like $50 for a full tank of gas. And
Yeah.
like, but then like, if you know, and I'm fortunate if I can afford the gas, right? But what if what if there's Americans, which we know that more than the average American doesn't even have $1,000 in savings for emergencies, right? And they live paycheck to paycheck. That extra $25 could be their kid's lunch for the week or for
It's
a
a
day.
lot of money.
It's a lot of, and the money's worth less. And yet
Yeah.
we still have inflationary factors. Like, oh, inflation's down. Did the prices go down? They
Yeah.
didn't really go down, did they? Like eggs are still expensive as shit. Milk is $7-8 if you want like decent organic milk. You don't have to get that, but like if you're a person that chooses to like believe the you know the potential myths of organic, you know, like if you're one of those people that like I got to get this healthy stuff, you're in deep shit because like that
Yeah.
$25 is now food for your kids or the milk or the eggs, and sacrifices have to be made, and like it's going to just drive more ire. You know, it's going to drive the ire of America. And that, again, to your point, part of that fifth generational psychological economic warfare mechanism, right? Like, but most people don't want to think about it beyond bomb Iran to hell and kill Persians. It's like it's insane. It's like, dude, the longer this goes on, the worse it gets for the world. The worse it gets for the world, the eyes turn to America for doing it, right? We drive away confidence. We drive away, you know, disposition of like a good disposition towards the nation. I mean, like the portrayal of, like you said, like creating the picture that America is truly the great Satan. And then eventually, if this continues, and civilians die in Iran, which I think the latest count of collateral has been like three. It's like 3,000.
Eesh.
If that number keeps going up, like we do become in the eyes of like you know other countries, like we might be the great Satan in their eyes. I'm not saying that's a fact. I don't
Yeah.
like it happening. I'm not a fan of this shit at all. You know that about me. I've been screaming about this since June of last year. Like we cannot do this for these exact reasons. Not because Iran will beat us militarily. We'll shit on them if we had full strength, like 2003 strength. We beat them. But what's our record on occupation and regime change? It's like we bat zero, like literally. We
Yeah.
bat zero. Like, well, we bet one because we got Maduro. Okay, great.
Right.
That's it. Like, what else do we have to talk about? Like, what other was Iraq a success?
No.
We went in Iraq and we put and the Shias ended up getting in power because ISIS and ISIL grew. And who are the Shias loyal to? Iran. We literally strengthened Iran. Literally strengthened them. I mean,
Yeah.
like we are also in consequence of our military actions. We have fed that monster, and at some point you might have to argue: was it on purpose to make them an adversary to have this battle? Who the fuck
The
knows?
CIA's done it before.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just it's absolutely out of control, dude. Yo, dude, we've been going for a good hour and a half. Um, I want to talk about protecting children, but do you want to maybe we dedicate another episode just for that topic? Since we've
Sure.
been,
I
because I
would
feel
love
like
to.
we've been talking about finance and we've been talking about cybersecurity and the Iran situation. I don't want to really like. I really want to, because that's a subject that's extremely near and dear to my heart as well. You know, I don't personally have kids, but I have little nieces, and they're the most beautiful creatures. You know, they're like my little animals. I pinch their
Totally.
but like I love them to death, and like the innocence of children is something that is sacred and is divine, and must be protected. And I really would like to dedicate time to that. So are you cool if maybe we do that on another episode, and we
I'm
can
very,
talk.
very cool with that. I think that we've done a great episode. I think we encapsulated a lot of our subjects, and I think that we left a lot of threads for people to search. Like part of my, some people might get frustrated with the way I kind of like lead things, but I really have found that you can't teach people directly. You really kind of have to lead these breadcrumbs and these vast subjects like cybersecurity and stuff. I can't give the direct answer. Like you and I can have a direct answer talk because you're ready to have it, but leading people into it, like I think, so I love where we kind of like have left this and the way that we've tied it all in. And of course, the kids matter very much near and dear to me too, but that is an entire subject all in and of itself, like you said. And, the rest of these things were kind of built around the geopolitical tensions of the world. And I think maybe the next one we could tie it into personal, like how does this all affect us? And I think it would be a good idea to not necessarily, and obviously very near and dear to my heart too.
I know.
Um, but people only have limited minds, and then to hit them with a conversation as deep as like stopping trafficking of children, this, after an hour and a half of already talking about geopolitical tensions and cybersecurity and finance and digital infrastructure, I think it would be asking a lot of people because it is, like you said, maybe a show in and of itself. And I could go for days on that subject. So if you wanted to do that one for our next week or,
Yeah.
whatever, whenever you wanted to record, I would love that. But I was kind of thinking very similarly, an hour and a half is a good amount of time to ask for people. You get much longer than that and you start losing too much.
Yeah.
People
This
just
is our
look at the
longest
time and they're
episode
like, I
we've been
can't.
on so far. Longest one.
What's
So like it's usually just me complaining to myself, and I believe in it was actually really great. I don't know, Mist, if it's okay, but there was a space we were both on when we are talking about men and like the state of
Yeah,
man and like the feelings that men go through and like how we deal with things. And it's important to like to me as what like to show vulnerability is strength, right? And like so
yeah,
on my channel, on other episodes, I'm not afraid to show how I really feel about things because like when we're trying to drive connection to each other and like drive a point, like we got to be real about this stuff. It's if you do the I'm not trying to do the canned approach and like the like this is not a pro podcast. It never will be. It's going to be conversational. It's going to be me
raw.
chatting with my like with friends and mutuals and maybe other guests in the future, but like I'm not focused on big accounts. And this is all about like having just dialogue with like someone you can go to the bar, you sit at the bar and you're having a beer, and like you guys end up having like a 2 hour chat, and it's like special, because like those
Yeah.
kinds of personalized conversations are what are the most impactful and the most memorable.
I agree. And that's what this felt like to me here was it was like I forgot we were recording a podcast. Like we were just talking about these things that are very near and dear. And I think that people really need to understand them because I think you brought up a really good point. I don't want to see America get slaughtered. I don't want to see Americans get hurt. I don't want to lose our position in the power. I want us to grow. And part of the reason why I sound all these alarms is to Paul Revere it. I see strategic forecasting that is not looking good for us at this point in time. And I'm not trying to be anti-American, and I don't think you are either. I think we
No.
have to accurately regard the world for where we are in it, and we have to read the battlefield for what it is. And I think that starting this conversation is getting people in going in that direction. And this was so much fun. Like, thank you
Yeah.
so much.
No, we'll do this as often as you like, man. Again, you're one of the first accounts I followed when I got on. Like, I actually actively started using X. I'm very
Cool.
grateful to consider you a friend, and the people that I've been introduced to, just good people and good hearts. And man, it's not anti-American to care about this country, dude. That's the thing. It's like if you think by saying, I don't think this war is good, it's not good for us. Like, it's like after a high school football game, and there's a group that wants to go fight the rival teams, like the fans of like the kids from the rival school in the parking lot, and there's resource officers out there. I know this from experience. It's like, guys, I don't think we should do this because we might get arrested. and I care about y'all, and I don't want us to get punched in the face. We don't know if they're sitting there with bats. We don't know what they're dealing with, what they got. And it's the same kind of thing on a macro level. Like, I care about my nation. This is not good for us. There's no benefit for us. And on a human level and on a spiritual level, like, I just don't think that it's okay to just go like we're blowing up civilian shit, dude. Like, we're not like,
Yeah.
we're military targets. We're taking out universities, schools. Now we're talking about taking out power and like putting people in the dark. Like, what the fuck? Excuse me. Like, anyway,
Yeah.
I can keep going, man. I'm sorry. I'm
You're
passionate about
good.
this subject, and I talk about it a lot. I probably annoy the shit out of everyone that's ever listened to me. I talk about this so much, but
Not me.
I'm just, I raise the alarm because this is not fighting Iraq. This is not. This is more akin to a Vietnam. This is a quagmire, man. This is dangerous. This is bankrupting. It's
Yeah.
more ways than one. But anyway, Mist, brother, love you, man. I appreciate your time, dude. This was awesome. Let's link up and plan something to talk about protecting the kids. We'll flesh it out to a full episode,
Yeah.
and just focus on that subject.
In light of talking about it tonight, I would plug everybody just come on Tuesday night at oh, I'm not sure of exactly the time. Come check my page. But we're doing that BX on X and the Shepherd's Watch Foundation spaces where they're gonna interview BX on X. So that would be a great place for people to come and learn about how to protect your children in a digital frontier. That would be a great one. And then you and I can do, we do our spaces on it next too. And I think you touched upon something else that I also want, I mean, not spaces, podcast on. Another one that I want you and I to do, spiritual warfare. I think we
Yeah.
should do one on spiritual warfare too.
Totally, man. Totally. Yeah, everybody, please, 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 before you even follow me and subscribe and comment and like this podcast, you're going to go to Into the Myst 13 and follow Mist, and be sure to check in on Tuesday when he's able to post about the space with Shepherd's Watch. I'm telling y'all, if you care about kids, Mist is the account, or one of the accounts you absolutely must follow. He genuinely cares.
Thank you.
He's the real deal. And it's inspiring, honestly. So please go follow at Into the Myst 13. Don't forget to follow me though on
Yeah,
X
for real.
at MNBFY Pod. And please comment, and like this podcast. And Mist, we'll do it again real soon, man. I
Next
appreciate
week
your time.
or whenever.
Yeah, man, for sure. All right, man. Well, everyone, thank you. This was the longest yet. As we do more with Mist, I have other friends that Mist and me have, that Mist and me have. Wow, Mist and I. Sorry, a lot of talking.
You
Not
caught
used to it.
it.
But I got some other folks coming on here, various other topics. But yeah, I'll be doing this pretty frequently with Mist. And yeah, hope everyone has a great weekend. Today again, it's Friday the 3rd. This will air on Saturday. So if anything absolutely insane happens overnight in the conflict with Iran, we're a day behind. So just keep that in mind if you listen in.
Thank you so much. I look forward to doing this again.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Hey, everyone, have a great night. Miss, have a great night, and talk to y'all later. Thank you. Bye
Appreciate you,
bye.
brother.
Appreciate you, man. Later.
Later.